Good morning to you. Welcome to the webinar today. My name is Kath Smith and I'm joined by Graham Knoll from Uniform Agri. So today we're looking specifically at the vet portal for Uniform Online, also known as version 6. And I've just got a couple of herds as demos to show you here. Before we go into the herd though, this is really key information that is available to you without having to look too closely. We've got on the general dashboard, as you log in, this is your opening screen. So we can see the last process date to know that we've got up-to-date information coming from the farm. And you also have total number of alerts here. Now, these alerts are areas where the performance may not be quite what the herd is looking for in terms of good, bad, heading in the wrong direction. So you can, if you've got a huge list of herds, you can always sort with a quick click up here to rank those in sort of attention list order. The format of this KPI list as well, you can also change. So we can go further along here. We've got a section on milk, for example, and one on fertility. And these are also highlighted with different KPIs where you can see alerts that might need delving into in a bit more detail. The other element to this is the properties button, and this will feature time and again in today's presentation because it's a really important button to have a look at when you want to set the date range of something or the different options that are available to you to make it fit for your herds. Now, the properties on this one I can't click on because of GDPR. I can't show you all my herds that I've got configured here, but within that, two important points. One is you'll see it straight away as you go in, whether you want to view milk meter information where applicable, or data from milk recordings, and that will be automatically assigned to any relevant graphs or bits of information such as SPP. If the milk meter info is there, so it's coming in from a parlour or a robot, you will know, you'll be able to see it very quickly. So set those herds to milk meter in this screen first within that properties area. The other bit as well is the KPI settings. So from a vet practice perspective, you would want to set maybe similar parameters for all of your herds. So it's a default across the board to start with. So again, in that properties, have a look at KPI options, and you can just go through the good and the bad ranges and make sure they are appropriate for your herds as a whole. We can then drill down further, as you'll see in a moment, into individual herds. Okay, what I should have said at the start as well, if you've got any questions, please leave those to the end, but you can, of course, write them in the question pane as we go through, and we will come to those later. So I'm going to go into this herd here, and this is Hartpury University. They very kindly let us view their data. So we know we've got really good fresh information, and we are now in what might be familiar to you, very similar to the farmer's own dashboard with the color coding for fertility events and statuses. Now, one thing to point out here, these are completely customizable. So unlike the farmer's copy, which is fairly fixed in terms of the blocks that are on the screen, these ones we can move around. So for example, if I wanted cell counts to feature up here, I can leave it up there. And don't forget, with all of the changes that you make here, we have got a save button for anything that you do that's different to what you've already seen. In actual fact, I want my KPI button up there. So I'm going to save that now. The other thing as well, very often when you first come in, this particular area of KPIs only has 6 buttons out of a possible 9 that are showing. So we can go into the cog here for this individual section. So these KPIs are now pertinent to this particular herd, so they might be different to the overall and to other herds as well. So do have a look through and see that you've got everything you want. We can include fertility stats, for example. So I've got preg rate there, conception rate, and it might be we want some, I don't know, calving age of heifers. There we go. So have a look through these as well. For example, I've already made this change, but the cell count range, just check that that's a sensible range. You want, things to be notified a bit sooner than perhaps a higher cell count would determine. So we click OK to that, And then you'll see straight away, I've now got my full complement of KPIs. And these are really, for you to grab information or go to the source of the data quickly. We can click on, for example, conception rate. That will take us into the KPIs, which Graham is going to show you in a bit. And it's a very easy way to then get to the source of the data where you need to find. Okay, so with that in mind, if I went to insemination rate, for example, that will just illustrate what I'm seeing here. So we've got fertility KPIs on this one. This is your pathway. So if I were to go into fertility, that will just take me back a step, same as if you were to go cow head and then number 3, fertility there. This menu structure is the same as the farmers as well, with a few extra bits. And I'm just going to hand over to Graham now for the fertility analysis overview.
Okay, Kath, thank you very much for that. I'm just really going to show 2 reports on the fertility side. So very often if we have a new herd and we just want to have a kind of overall feeling for that herd, what's changed over the years, we'll go to this one, the overview. So if we just select that. This report, basically, we have the ability to have 2 levels to it. We can just have a very simple basic level, or we can see the advanced view, which gives us a lot more information. But basically the way we look at it is we're looking at the milking herd, then we look at the young stock, and then we look at the cows. And we can see the report is set up and is set up to look at it over 12 months. So if you want to change that, again, as Kath alluded to, go to properties. And what we're going to do is just look over the last 5 years. So we select yearly, the number of periods that we're looking at, 5 years. And then if we wanted to save that, we can do that, and that will then become the default report structure. So we'll just say okay to that. The report then loads, and instead of looking at it over 12 months, we've now got the 5 years of data. So if we just go back up again and scroll back up to the top. Great. So we can look at the number of cows in the herd. So we see a big drop from 2024 to 2025. We can look at the 305 yields, which have been going up. We can look at the number of young stock, average age at insemination. And Kath, you can see the little I there. And what that does is it shows us the cows behind the calculation. So I is for information. And if we select that, we're then able to look at the cows that were included in that calculation. And obviously we can sort on months, so we can look at the youngest ones and we can look at the oldest ones. So I think it's important you can always see the data behind the calculation. And we can see there on expected calving age, everything is pretty much under control. Then if we scroll down, we then get a summary on the cows. So we've got the scroll bar on the right hand side, and we can see days to pregnant. So quite a big change there in 22 and 23, right through to 24. Average days to first service, again, we can see a big difference. And the number of inseminations to get the cows pregnant, so we're a little bit higher at the moment in 2026, along with the predicted calving interval. Now, if you want to dig deeper into that, you'll see there's on the left-hand side, there's an advanced view tab. So we select that, and then you can see a massive difference now. So we can really drill into the data. And if we scroll right down to the bottom, then we can see the 3 different types of calving intervals: historical, expected, and predicted. That's there for the cows. Now, just one thing, suspicious data. That's basically when we enter the data on uniform, we make a big effort to validate the data. And suspicious data is there to kind of catch out the bits that slip through the net. So it's there really just to give us a warning. So we can see in 2025, there was only 1 bit of information that we didn't like the look of. And if we want to check that, again, we hit the information, and there we can see that the gestation period was 168 days. So in fact, we've put in a calving and started a new lactation when it should really have been an abortion. So I just wanted to draw your attention to that. The quality of the data here is looking very good. Okay, so that is the overview. But if we really then want to drill down and check what the insemination rate's like, what the preg rate's like, what the conception rate's like, we've got a specific report for this one. So let's close the overview. Okay, and go to number 11, the US KPIs. So we have the options basically on how we actually want to look at it. We could look at it by calendar date. Now that's on the right hand side of the screen. So we have two options there: calendar date, days in milk, age, but we're going to stick to calendar date. So I'm happy with that. And if we just go across and we have a look at the insemination rate. So if we look at that period, the 10th of November, we can see that the number of cows we had eligible. In fact, just to make it a little bit easier to see, what you can do is you can just remove the graph. Again, on the right-hand side, thank you, Kath. And if we go back to that 10th of November there, we can see there were 37 animals eligible to be inseminated, and we inseminated 22. Therefore, our insemination rate is 59%. And if we look overall how we're doing it, we've managed to hit 78, managed to hit 70. So that was a fairly low figure. And at the bottom, we can see the overall figure. So we can see that over that period, and you can see the period at the top, 17th of February to the 16th of February 26. For those of you that are thinking, well, can I actually change that period? Of course, the answer is properties. And if we go into properties, we can change that date range. So here we can see what period we want to look at, but I'm happy with that. That's good. So I'll say okay. So first of all, are we serving enough cows? And then if we work across, we can see that how many that we actually served and how many we got pregnant. And then that then gives us our preg rate for that specific period. And overall, our preg rate is 21%. You can break it down by, on the right-hand side, by first calvers, second calvers, third calvers, and so on, and even by the type of insemination. But what I want to draw your attention to now is the conception rate. So we've seen, are we serving enough cows? We've seen what the preg rate is, but let's see now on the conception rate. So again, on the right-hand side, you'll see analyzed by. And so we can look at the conception rate based on the number of services. Just hit the drop-down list. We can then change that so we can look at it by lactation. But if we start first of all, we'll look at it by the individual bulls. So it's going to look at all the bulls that we use within that period. What we can then do is click on the column that says inseminated, and so we'll list it in order of the bulls that we use the most, basically. So we click again. Great stuff. So we can see the bull that we used the most was Aberdeen Angus, and we see the conception rate there was 42%. So that can tell us basically the performance of the individual bulls, but we may want to have a look at the performance of the individual inseminators. So again, we go to the analyze by, and we can then pick out the inseminator code. We're also able to look at it by the day of the week. Does the day of the week have influence? And of course, we look at some data sets where that can well be the case, and it could be in terms of the people that have a day's holiday, or it could be sort of protocols that we're doing on the farm. And one thing that's quite handy, we can look at it based on the days of the week, and that's looking over the period, but you can also break it down by month. And if we scroll right down to the bottom, you'll see a little thing there split into periods, and that's exactly what that will do. So it then breaks it down so we can look not just over the day of the week over that period, but we can look at the day of the week over the month. And we can do exactly the same, for example, when we look at the performance of the inseminators. So if we take that tick out and we go back to analyze by, you can see there, we can also look at it by the type of heat. Was it a natural heat? Was it a managed heat? And we can also look at it, obviously, based on sex semen. So as long as the farmer is recording this information in the correct way, and obviously that's essential, this then gives you the ability to really analyze the data and really drill down on it. And of course, if you find that, for example, I've seen it before where instead of using a drop-down list, they're putting it into comments, then please tell Kath or myself, and our help desk can contact the customer and make sure they're putting the information in the correct way. So if we close that, that's just 2 reports on fertility. And I think the overview is really important. Remember the properties so you can look at it by year. The US KPIs is a super way to drill down on what's happening. And that then leads nicely into milking herd prediction. And I'll pass over to Kath.
Great, thank you, Graham. The other thing to say, if you stumble upon a really useful report, such as these are, and you want to save it in somewhere a bit more prominent, don't forget we've got the dashboard presets that you can drill down into straight away. But you can also do a right click on any tile and add to toolbar, and that will actually place it across the top here. That's what these are. These are like my favorite reports I can go into from anywhere, and across herds as well. So the milking herd prediction. Now this one changed names, so it used to be a calving pattern, and that's exactly what it is to start with. So if you're looking for 3-3 calving pattern, this is what it now is. So we've got a breakdown of cows due to calve and young stock, but we can actually go a step further. So there's another tab now for pregnant animals. So taking out any guesswork for the months that are a bit further ahead, these are the known pregnant animals, and then we've got a sort of true calving pattern expected. And with all of these graphs, do look out for the grid button as well on the left-hand corner if you want to look at the numbers that are involved. So that gives us the actual numbers here. So a couple of things to note. We've got numbers of cows, numbers of heifers due. Again, you can drill down and expand if you need to. We also have dairy and beef, and another expansion button down here, bottom left. We can view how many are due to sexed as well. The other element with this milking herd size prediction, as the name illustrates, if I go into this one, that's the grid version, but actually the graph is a really key way of seeing everything. If I go into this one now, there we go. So we've got several different graphs in here, not only how many calvings are due, but how many cows in milk that equates to, and you can actually hover the mouse over to view your expected numbers of cows, what that looks like from a day's perspective, and dry cows as well. So really good, clear picture for what's coming up for the next year. Okay, so back on our cow head, which is often a really good place to regather. Let's have a look now at the health and treatments tab. Graham, did you want to go through the cell count analysis?
Yep, great, thank you. So we've got a number 1, cell count analysis. And yeah, basically we can sort on percentage contribution. We can sort on the persistent offenders, as we can see there. So if we click on there, colors are important. Red vertical line was a physical case of mastitis. Purple denotes that the cow was chronic, so she was high before that. And red is a new infection, and green is cured. So we can look at it like that. But if we want more of an overview, if we go to the graph, okay, and probably the first one I look at is the comparison over 2 milk recordings. So if we take a look there, this is an interesting report because it basically takes the 2 recordings. So on the left-hand side, that was recording in December, and the bottom axis, that was recording in January. And then we can see the cows, basically the repeat offenders. So we can see that there's 2 that are very high up on the chronic side, and we can see the ones that are cured, and then we can see the numbers of new infections. And if we then want to say, okay, let's look over a period of time, let's go to the cell count over the last 2 years. If we go left a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, so what we've got there is basically the red line is the percentage contribution above 400,000, and then we can see the average somatic cell count. So what we do see is a little bit of an increase there, quite a big increase actually, going on really from July up to October. So we probably want to drill down a little bit more now. So if you go into the trend, and generally what I do with this one is I just leave the first calvus. If we just take out second, third, fourth, and fifth first. Great. So again, we see this bit of a blip going on there in October, but overall it's not looking too bad. Let's have a look at the second calvus. So we take out the first. But again, we see that blip, but it started a little bit earlier in August actually for the second calvus. So let's take those out and have a look at the older cows now. So again, it's even a little bit earlier, and we'll look at the 5th as well at the same time. Okay, so we can see that there's something going on around that period, really starting in June. So if we then go and take a look now at the new infections. Okay, so again, we can see here a very high number of infections really over that period that we've just looked at on the trend, which is peaking in that October recording. So that gives you a feeling for what's going on. Because there's such a high number there of new infections, what we'll do is we'll just close that. We'll go back to health and treatments, and we'll take a look in dry off analysis. If we go into the dry off results, and to be honest, I think, yeah, I tend to look at the summary first, but there's a very nice graph there, and we can see in October. To me, this is what I feel more familiar with the figures. But if we have a look at that recording in October, what it tells us, so if we just highlight that one, Catherine, we're able to. What it's telling us is that there were 20 cows that had their first recording after calving. And of those 20, 11 were healthy. So it just means they finished low and they came in low. So that was good. We didn't have any high ones to cured, so that was fine. We had 3 that remained chronic. So they finished high, they came in high, but out of those 26 actually were new infections. And if we highlight again with the eye, we can see which cows, and then we can see what levels of somatic cell count they actually came in with. And we see a little bit over that period, if we just get rid of that, we can see 30%, then 42%, and 23% on the new infections. So I think that's it's quite a good way of looking at it, and then showing that data to the farmer and hopefully working out some protocols that are going to rectify that situation. So let's close that. So that was the somatic cell count analysis in 4.1, and then the dry off analysis, which is 4.10 and 0.1, dry off results. Catherine, are we able to have a look how we can just pick out the instance of health cases?
Yes, we are. So back to health and treatments, cow head number 4. We've got a couple of reports in here actually, but the health event analysis gives you a really nice summary, number 34. And it automatically chooses all of your health conditions, or from the farmer's perspective, that he has recorded within their program. So you don't have to tick anything or search for a particular type. It's all listed in there across that whole year. So you've got a nice seasonality idea, or you can look at it from a days in milk perspective. So we've got, you know, possible index cases occurring here for things like mastitis, young stock as well by age or by lactation number, yeah. And again, the properties, you can actually alter those ranges, you know, within these different segments here.
Yeah, so it could be 0 to 100 days, 100 to 200 days, so however you want to set that up.
Ideal. Back on the health and treatments then, you've also got health reporting, which takes it into a bit more detail. So it's a grid, and you might find, you know, there's a random health condition to start with, but all in the properties, you can then determine whether you want to look at young stock or cows or both. Do you want to include historic animals that have since left the herd? Your date range is also in here, and then you've got your codes either by category, so lameness types or udder health, by health condition, so tick all the boxes that you want to view. So this one takes a bit longer to set up, but does give you a lot more detail, or even by treatment type, if you're looking for you know, specific conditions or vaccinations, that kind of thing. One last area to show, Graham, is the report export. Now this puts everything all together that we've discussed really. So within the cow head, and it might be you go straight into this bit to, you know, grab a summary of everything that's been happening over the last quarter or so. Number 10, special reports. And then we've got this one here, report export. Now here's some I created earlier, but you can actually start off in the wizard. So this button down here, we give our report a name. So I could say new report, These are the practice logos you can bring in. So 2 logos you can have on your front page, absolutely fine. We then go to next. And by default, we've got the herd fertility status, a very simple summary table, numbers of pregnant cows served, open, etc. So that one's in there all the time, although you can remove it if you need to. We add report, and then we've got our cow head menu, just the same setup. So you can go into fertility, for example, pick out that overview list we were looking at, and OK. So that's that grid added to our list. And this is very much a template, so you can use it time and again. Add report again, and then we could maybe bring in, the health one. There we go, health event analysis as well. So as much detail or, overview as you need. Perhaps just the cows on that one. You can keep going. It doesn't have to be 3 items. It can be as many as you need for your particular report. We click finish. And really quickly, it will generate a lovely template for you to use for that herd. So this is the report name. This is my herd I'm looking at, the date range in question, a nice little summary page, contents, and then you've got all that information in there to view. You can download that as a PDF, email it straight to the farmer from here. So if you want to put your own stamp on it, you can do, absolutely. Okay, so hopefully that's given you a really nice flavour of some of the key reports and why we use them. Graham, any questions from your end?
Yeah, just got one coming in. Are you able to import foot trimming results?
Yes, now the farmer can import those. So on his copy of Uniform, the other thing to say as well is this is very much a one-way street of data. So data coming from the farm to the vet version here, nothing goes back the other way. So any settings changes that you make here will just stay here. But yes, farmers can import foot trimming results from All 4 Feet, Hoof Tech, Hoof Supervisor and Vet Impress, or they can enter them manually themselves. And then those will be viewable on your copy, just like we've seen here. In fact, in the health reporting, so this is 4.2, you have got under the treatment, so remember foot trimming is classed as a treatment, not a health event. And then we can look for trimming in here somewhere, along with all my other ones. But yeah, it's usually listed as hoof trimming. There we go. So if I can add foot trim in there, if I want to view just those in their isolation. Okay.
That's all the questions, Kath.
Lovely. Well, thank you all very much for listening. We're going to try and do this on a regular basis, so maybe once a quarter. So do look out for the invitations on here. It is always recorded, and we will always send you out a copy of the recording if you can't make it. So if you're watching on catch up, we will keep you informed of any new developments as well. And please, do contact us with any questions or any help that you need. Thank you all very much for attending. We'll speak to you very soon.